Hey guys, how's it going? Today I want to speak about the subject of, does art hurt society in any way? Well, it's like any self-expression. If it's used badly, well, it could definitely hurt society. Think about it as, for example, propaganda pamphlets, or just the propagation of whatever kind of message a sort of art would imply, and that could be given through, again, propaganda messages that could be put as flyers like in the old times on walls and all that stuff. But then in nowadays, it's the simplicity of putting artwork, putting a certain type of message in that artwork and propagating it, widespreading it through the internet. Yeah. So the thing is that obviously art is very susceptible to what you consider art. We could say that a trash can is art. We could say that a car is art. We could say that the landscaping of grass is art, which it is. And that's where basically it kind of becomes very difficult to know how it influences our society. But definitely the architecture of how buildings are, of how a city is, will influence the way that people live. If, for example, like me, I'm in Los Angeles, everything is flat and buildings don't have a lot of floors in them, well, what's going to happen is that the city is going to be widespread. Whereas if you go to New York, well, what's going to happen there is that basically, well, what's happening there is that they have a lot of high sky-rise buildings, so the population is very condensed. So does it impact the society negatively or positively? Well, for LA, it's negative in some way, because if everything's widespread, everything's far away. And because we don't have public transportation that's very good, well, what happens there is that basically you end up having to drive everywhere. And if you're driving everywhere, well, it just takes time to go from one place to the other. Whereas if you're in New York and everything is based on public transportation and everything is very condensed because everything is on those skyrise or buildings that have multiple floors, well, your commutes are going to be shorter. Of course, it all depends on how far away you live, but that's art too, just the fact of how the city was made. Now, if we're looking at it from a more regular kind of way, conservative kind of way of art in museums, can it impact society positively or negatively? Well, once again, yes, it can either impact it positively or negatively, depending on what message it gives. If you look at old art, all it did was depict angels and a lot of characters from the Bible, and basically was religious. And we were depicting basically a lot of white Caucasian people. And we didn't really depict a lot of other kind of religions either. So it was propagating the fact that Jesus Christ and all these things were a certain way. Did it impact it positively or negatively? Well, in some cases it did on a positive scale. In other cases, well, it's going to send the wrong message to people, because we're not really showing the reality of the things. We're not showing the reality of life. So that's where we're saying is that definitely art can impact society in a very negative way. But we also need it. That's the thing too, is that if you're not basically, how can I say, if you're not willing to explore these things, well, then you're not going to be able to, well, if you don't look at them, well, and you don't accept art, well, then there's no, at least that was the old way of making messages, in a way. Now we have TV, now we have internet and all these things, and those things are art too. And you can also say that, for example, the art, the fact of showing television stuff and the messages that it gives on television with whatever art it's showing on that screen, be it a story that tells something positive or stories that tells something negative, well, society is going to follow it. Society is going to take, how can I say, they're going to take some sort of interest in whatever is being said within the movie, within the series, within the show, and they're gonna take a message out of it. And if that message of that show, TV series, or movie is good, well, it's gonna impact society in a positive way. But if it's bad, well, people might think that it's good, and then they're gonna start imitating it, and then it's gonna create a bad influence. So you see, art is very susceptible, and art is everywhere, even when we don't realize it. And it definitely can impact society either way, but also from how it's been taken and how it's been interpreted. Because maybe something was released and had a positive message, but people interpret it badly. So if they're interpreting it badly, well, then it's going to be negative for the society. See? So that's it. That's all I have to say on the subject. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.